By a show of hands, how many of you have heard of issues such as plastic pollution, poor water quality, and toxic metals? So a number of you have heard of these issues, but I ask you, how do you explain the disproportionate context behind these issues? Why underserved communities face a higher number of environmental challenges, whereas in higher income communities, these are not problems of great concern. Experts in the field of environmental studies define this inequality as environmental injustice, where low-income or marginalized communities face a higher number of environmental burdens as a result of varying social, political, and economic factors. These communities are often regarded as overburdened communities, and one glaring example of environmental injustice is Louisiana's Cancer Alley. So along 85 miles of the Mississippi River exist over 200 fossil fuel and petrochemical plants emitting toxic air fumes to local communities, leading to one of the highest rates of cancer in the entire United States. The communities are predominantly Black and brown. Residents of these communities have even urged the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to investigate conditions on the basis of violating the Civil Rights Act of 1964, given the disproportionate amount of air pollution affecting predominantly Black and brown residents. And that's just one instance. Cancer Valley is just one of hundreds, if not thousands of examples in the United States demonstrating environmental injustice being faced by low-income communities of color. And a state in which this inequality is increasingly common is the state of New Jersey. A 20-minute drive from Philadelphia, the township of Paulsboro, New Jersey, part of Gloucester County, is considered an overburdened community according to the New Jersey environmental justice law. As an overburdened community, at least 35% of households qualify as low income. That being said, the township has been showing growth, both economic and environmental, especially in response to a toxic compound that has affected the township for nearly a decade. So among several other overburdened communities in New Jersey, including Camden, Newark, and Elizabeth, Paulsboro stands out due to the increased presence of a forever chemical known as PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which have been known to remain in the environment and humans for an extended period of time. And over the past decade, the compound has affected the waterways and infected the air, impacting many residents of Paulsboro, as many contained remarkably high levels of the compound. But the higher concentration begs the question, why is there an increased presence of a toxic compound in an overburdened community than in a higher income community? To answer this question, we first need to consider the context behind the contamination. Rutgers University professor Dr. Robert Lombach has been analyzing the increased presence of the toxic compound to understand the effects the compound has on local residents. I had a chance to analyze a sample of data provided by Dr. Lombach, and it was in conversation with him that he told me the source of contamination, unsurprisingly, was a chemical company. And in the summer, even though in the summer of 2023, the company agreed to pay $393 million in cleanup, the damage had been done, and the question remains, why Paulsboro? Even though the source of contamination may not have been necessarily intentional, it's very hard to find examples of industrial sites contaminating higher income communities. And if we look at the situation from an environmental justice point of view, the town seems like a perfect example. A low-income community facing a higher number of environmental burdens as a result of varying social, political, and economic factors. But what are these factors in Paulsboro? Is it the lack of a political voice that demands stricter oversight on water quality for over the past decade? Is it due to the relatively low price of leasing the land to industrial sites, making the town a target to objectively bad environmental practices? Or for higher income communities, their ability to reject the idea of having an industrial site in their own town because they themselves don't want toxic compounds in their own backyard? Or is it a combination of all these factors? That's an answer that's very difficult to definitively prove, But these factors are not unique to Paulsboro or Cancer Alley, but all overburdened communities facing environmental issues. Now, realizing these issues, we have to consider what's next for overburdened communities. How can we bring justice to communities where environmental conditions continue to pervade our environment through factors that are within our control? Is it redefining standards of cultural equity to ensure citizens are not disproportionately affected by environmental conditions, such as defining equal standards when urban planning? Or is it establishing channels to uplift voices found in underserved communities? Or for youth, joining a local environmental organization to teach community members about ways to reduce their own carbon footprint? Organizing a letter campaign to seek change of environmental education in classrooms? Or organizing a petition to ensure local bodies of government maintain clean water levels? I urge communities to consider these solutions, realizing that equity should be accessible to every single community, not just higher income communities. I urge you all to consider a shift in your perspective. Realize that environmental issues continue to pervade our environment through forms such as PFAS, and that there are small changes that we can make in our day-to-day habits to reduce sources of contamination. Repurposing items such as plastic water bottles, being cognizant of water use and electricity generation, and looking into sustainable alternatives to items such as plastic bags. These solutions are the initial steps to ensure a shift in perspective is recognized among your local community, businesses, and legislators, so we can all play a role in bringing justice to communities like Paulsboro. Thank you.